everything that I know says I gotta go, tired of going solo, but I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to crawl. I'm not the one with two star hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of the life inside this man. I've been born again.
Welcome to all of our...
Now we started the show. We just forgot to hit the record button.
I did forget. I hope we didn't do too many minutes. See, you show people.
Yeah.
Facebook people always get the benefit. I'm sure Dave will edit in.
Yeah, we'll get some. It'll be a little rougher sound. I'm sure
I hate when I do that. I hate when I do that. We get so into it, I forget to hit the red button.
I got to shut off some sound. There we go.
As I said, we've only been doing this for 2.5 years now. So, there we go. Okay. So, anyway, as we were saying, but the Fox News channel is really, they're kind of in a hurt. But also, getting back to the original discussion where these candidates, DeSantis is losing his luster or has lost it. The question is, what will they do now? Is he going to drop out or not? And I don't think he ever had it. To me, people talk about, and I don't think a lot of people knew this, that he has kind of a how would you say it, an acidic personality. They say he grades people. He doesn't do well with people. He's not a people. It's funny because Trump, the public person that you see where he's attacking people and he's saying and making up these names for people and all this.
Yeah.
That's the person people don't like. But when you meet him in person, people love the guy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's the nicest guy, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. No matter who you talk to, when they meet Donald Trump, he's the nice guy.
He is.
DeSantis is the guy that he looks good publicly, but apparently behind the scenes, nobody likes the guy. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
It's a strange thing, I think Biden is the same.
Yeah.
Biden is the same type of person, that the private Joe Biden is nothing like the guy you see on TV, or, he's the guy that you catch off the mic cussing, always has been.
Well, Eddie, there's some people that have just honed their craft in media that they can come across as an extrovert, right? Mm-hmm. But in reality, they're not that kind of person.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know where you put yourself on that, but
I'm on another planet.
Okay.
I've been told.
But they just aren't. Trump is an extrovert, and I've heard the same thing about DeSantis. Is he's not the loudest guy in the room. He just, he's not the one to go shake everybody's hand and become everybody's friend. And that's what I get the sense of. And Jeb Bush, to me, I think there's a lot of comparisons between DeSantis and Jeb Bush. And in 2015, beginning days of the 16 campaign, a mutual friend wanted me to meet Jeb. He wanted me to run Jeb's Oklahoma campaign because after what I did to win 12, Jeb was pretty quiet sort of guy.
Yeah, I picture that. I see him that way. I think honestly that Jeb truly is a very nice guy.
Yeah,
he's a guy that if you meet him, he's just the most pleasant, nice guy you would meet.
And here's the other thing. I'm sorry, finish it.
No, but at the same time, as far as what you need for a president to get things done, I don't think Jeb is the guy.
So the other comparison is they both were very good executives in the governor's mansion in Florida. Florida's had a good string of Republican governors. And, I think it's on the strength of that now it is a solid red state.
Yeah, I wonder, though, you have to wonder, is the strength of Florida's government the governor, or is it the representatives?
All of them.
Yeah.
Now, my former state senator, Don Rubottom, went down to become Marco Rubio's chief of staff when Rubio and the Republicans first took over the legislature, the House. Rubio became speaker. It was in 96, early 97. And Don Rubottom and I have talked. In fact, he's the one that, was part of my meeting, Jeb. And it is that teamwork. It's completely opposite of Oklahoma's legislature and governor. They can't find any way to get along, But it's on that strength. In fact, I remember we had some straw polls at the Tulsa Republican Men's Club. And there were some people that I highly respect that were absolutely in for Jeb Bush. And I asked, and he said, I used to live in Florida. When Jeb was governor, he was a fantastic governor. Mm-hmm. And I think there's merit to that. How well can you run the executive branch?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where I'm at on it.
No, I agree. But as I said, I think that Florida, the way they're set up and the way their various state reps and senators work, they seem to work really well, and they really do care about their state, and they do a good job.
Oh, here's another little tidbit. They have term limits like you wouldn't believe. They limit their legislators 8 years. In the House, you've got your freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior terms, and that's it. So now, I don't know if that's why, because quite honestly, I don't know that term limits
we have term limits here too.
12 years.
Oh, ours is 12. Right?
Yeah, and I've talked to several people that think, maybe 12 could be moved to 16, and you still don't have the Gene Stipe type people. Because one of the things that helped,
Yeah, but, okay, let me stop you there, though, because I'm starting to have a problem with the amount of time they have now. I mean, what we're going to be discussing a little later, probably, we'll touch on that. Mm-hmm. But what we've discussed in last couple of weeks, the way the Republicans are fighting our governor, I don't mind having discussions and maybe some disagreements with the governor, but even McConnell and some of these people have never stooped to some of the things that our speaker and our
the Senate pro tem especially
have pulled with Governor Stitt.
Right.
That's ridiculous. Some of this stuff is ridiculous.
Well, in a different dynamic, though, the agencies in Oklahoma are running roughshod because they figure, if they've got a difficult chairman of a committee that's supposed to do oversight, they don't do oversight. We don't, because we're a part-time legislature. And a lot of us think that the committee chairs ought to be moved to a little bit more full-time to oversee, because it's bad. The way there's just some things we'll make a law and then the agency just ignore it. Like we had laws against Real ID and Department of Public Safety went ahead and complied with federal Real ID anyway. And it just is infuriating. And then here's the other little thing we've got. An agency can make an emergency rule when the legislature's not in session. But it's not sunsetted. What happens is if the Senate and the House and the governor strike it down, all three of those bodies, then it goes away. Otherwise, the agency gets to write the law. All they need is one of those three components, the House, Senate, or the governor, to like the idea, and it remains law, even though it was never passed as a statute. It just became an agency administrative rule.
Bureaucrats.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's become the law in Oklahoma.
So that would have to come before the people to change that? Or does somebody just have to step in and challenge that in court?
I think we need to get Nathan Dahm in here to discuss our last session.
That would be good.
And I think he's the right guy to ask that question.
So he's got two hats.
And I want to hear from you. Join us Facebook, Fresh Black Coffee page, and join our conversation. We are monitoring the comments on here. Alto, thank you for jumping in quickly, and we will see how it goes. So,
Flying Dutchman.
Yeah. Osterloo, or Oosterloo.
Osterlo.
Osterloo.
Osterlo.
Yes.
The double O is an O.
Okay. I had a neighbor, Van Orsdale, was Dutch. You know, and then a lot of people think I'm Dutch, but I'm Flemish Belgian. Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's funny, you know how in America, different states make fun of each other. Like, like, you know, how,
for us, it's Arkansas.
Yeah, like in Alabama, you know, where they say, how can you tell the difference in Mississippi between a Mississippi woman and a werewolf? A werewolf is only hairy on full moons. You know, well, like in Holland, you can buy a Belgian coffee cup, and I actually saw one of these, and the handle where you hold it is on the inside of the cup. So that's your Belgian. That's your Belgian. The little ring for your teacup or a coffee cup, instead of be outside, say on the inside of the cup. You know, so it's like Aggie jokes or Polish jokes, but they're Belgian jokes. You know, in Holland. Now, if you go to Belgium, they're Dutch jokes. So
my dad came up with an Iowa washer and dryer.
So it's Iowa and who is it? Wisconsin? Minnesota
picks on
Iowa. You would think it'd be Wisconsin.
Yeah, I know. But
okay,
Iowa's just a little easier target.
Okay.
You know? And
this is a little pause, right, of our serious news. Okay.
He went to his workbench downstairs and he found a great big washer. And he took a paper towel and he's rolled it up and he slid it through that and he said, "This is an Iowa washer and dryer." So, anyway. Oh, and the other backwards joke. It sounds like a pick on Iowa. Do you know why Iowa doesn't have a Major League Baseball team? Because then Minnesota will want one. The Twins are the only Major League farm club in the U.S.
At Tech, we had the reason that they put artificial turf at the University of Texas. You know that one?
Oh, yeah, we used to say in Oklahoma about Nebraska.
Yeah, to keep the cheerleaders from
grazing.
Anyway.
Everybody's redone that one. It's a classic.
All right. Moving right along. But anyway,
that's all the sports you get this week.
Yeah. But anyway, as far as the legislature goes, there's a problem with the GOP in general. And it's not just statewide. It is a national deal. I mean, when you've got people that hate the front runner of your party to the point where they're investing millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in people to try to knock him off, when this person is already got basically almost 40% locked up.
Yeah.
And yet you're trying to get somebody else to supplant that. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
When on the other side, the guy has, 30%, let's say. We'll give him 30%. And
AOC is endorsing him.
well, AOC, has to. But that's the thing. You know, the other side, let's go back to our Senate races in the last, Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker. Okay. You could not find enough bad things that the GOP could find or say about Herschel Walker and Dr. Oz. I mean, every day there was something wrong why these weren't the right candidates for the GOP.
Yeah,
in the Republican senatorial committee wouldn't fund these guys, and same with Kerry Lake in Arizona. Those are, and I think Nevada was another one. There were four states where we had senatorial candidates that the GOP did not get behind. That we could now have four senators that we could not only could but should have, that the GOP, the Republican Senatorial Committee, did not get behind, okay? And yet you have Fetterman and Warnock, I know what it is. Warnock is more like it in Georgia. That not one Democrat had one negative word to say about their candidate. Now you tell me what's wrong with that. I still can't get over it. I know you've heard me say it before, and I'll say it again. Democrats will go lockstep behind their candidate no matter what flaw there may be.
How senile he is. Yes.
Senile, corrupt.
Had a stroke, can't talk.
Yeah, and Warnock basically corrupt.
Yeah.
Okay? They don't care.
Yeah.
He's got to win. The party's got to win.
Yeah.
You know, and then we have one guy in New York, a congressman in New York, guy running for Congress, who figures out this is how the Democrats play the game.
Yes, he did the Joe Biden playbook.
He played the game and used it and won. And who are the first ones to turn on him? His own party.
Yeah.
Because we're so pure.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, Eddie, one factor here is the corrupt corporate media. Not just in the fact that they only focus on that, but they set up the narrative. Who's the first person they want to get a quote from? They want to find a Republican who will attack him.
Yeah, but
so they'll frame
but we don't need to play the game.
Exactly. We've got people that just grovel for microphone time, and they will play that game.
And the problem is, it's not usually some little minuscule freshman out there or somebody nobody's ever heard of in Rhode Island or in Montana.
Right.
You got to go Mitch McConnell.
Okay. So there's a couple
Mitt Romney.
Couple rarities. Democrats who wouldn't play the game. See, because the Democrats, they do party discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Tulsi Gabbard didn't play the game, and she's gone, right? And now it's Robert Kennedy. Won't play the game. You know, they're going to they're going to spin the narrative. Remember something David Brinkley famously once said, the media can't tell you what to think, but they can tell you what to think about. And they will focus on that, framing the issue the way they want it framed.
Right. But see, and that's why they're able to do it, because it works.
Yeah.
See, I learned a big lesson when I first moved to Europe. Well, I was born and raised there, actually. But when I moved back, when I was...
As a missionary.
Yes. So I'm, 30 years old. Moved back when I was 30.
With kids.
And with kids. But anyway, so I moved to Holland, and I met some people that had defected from... Because back then, it was still... The Iron Curtain was still up.
Cold War, yeah.
And so I met some guys, people that escaped from East Germany.
Yeah.
And I talked to these guys, and I said, so what was it like over there? And I had a total, I'm still thinking about, torture and killing Christians and all of this, the old, like, lions and tigers, being fed to lions, tigers, or whatever. And they said, no, it's nothing like that. They said, the way they do it, and it really opened my eyes. And that's what's happening. That's where we're headed, okay? So the way it is, you join the party or not join the party. You either join the Communist Party or you don't join the Communist Party. Now, if you are a Christian, if you swear allegiance to God, basically, you can't become a member of the Communist Party. If you become a member of the Communist Party, you can't go to college. You can't hold certain jobs.
If you're not a communist. You mean?
No.
If you join the Communist Party.
You can't join the Communist Party if you're a Christian.
Right. And then the second part, you said.
You can't join the Communist Party, and if you're not a member of the party, you can't go to university. Gotcha. You can't. Right.
In fact, yeah, just
can't get certain jobs. You can work in a factory. You can clean streets. You'll have the menial jobs. You will never succeed. You'll never. But if you want to get anywhere, particularly a big bureaucratic, nice job, move up the ladder, anything like that. So translate that to where we are now. If you want to get somewhere now in America, you join what? The Democrat Party.
Yeah.
That's where we're headed. That's where it's going eventually.
Yeah.
That's where we are now moving to in America.
Okay. Response to that, and then Alto's got something he wanted to add to this. About a year and a half ago, I was at my daughter-in-law's birthday party, backyard thing, and one of their good friends, who was born, raised, educated, an attorney in the Soviet Union, went to University of Moscow. Goes to church here in Broken Arrow, and her dad was in town. He was a professor at the University of Moscow under the Soviet rule. As soon as Yeltsin took over, guess what? He lost his job because he was a guy, and he became a policeman. Went from being a college professor to a policeman. So, Yeltsin is like, okay, you're going to play the spoils game? It works both ways. Yeah. So, but Alto had something. You were talking about the Senate races, and it is true, I believe, what Mitch McConnell would rather stay the minority leader than to be replaced by someone else as majority leader. Right. And now that's the Senate Republican.
It reminds me of what's the famous book? Yeah, well, anyway, it's where Satan said, "I would rather rule in hell than serve in heaven."
Was that a Screw Tape Letters thing?
No,
someone else.
No, it's I can't remember the.
Yeah,
it's.
While you're thinking,
we'll think about it later. Okay. Yeah, it'll come to it.
Getting to Alta's point, and this is breaking news this week.
Okay,
the money laundering that happened. The Republican governor's PAC gave money to several races. Carrie Lake could have used quite a bit more money in her very tight race. Yeah. A person who got massive amounts of money and didn't even have a real challenging race was Ron DeSantis. So now DeSantis is able to take that money he didn't spend, that people gave thinking that was going to help Carrie Lake get elected. Now that money got converted over to Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign. So what I want to say, folks, it not only matters who you give money to, but who controls that money. Because if you were trying to help Carrie Lake or Tudor Dixon or our friend up in New York State, I forget his name, the congressman that ran for governor, he came very close.
Yeah. Lee Zeldin.
Yeah. You thought you were helping them because they were carrying on Trump's agenda. Now, the money you gave is being used to defeat Trump by a bunch of never-Trumpers like DeSantis. Now, I don't really want to call
Ron's
DeSantis.
He's not.
Yeah, I don't really want to say that he is
the people
playing
supporting
their game.
Him.
Yes, he's become a tool of the never-Trumpers.
Karl Rove and that crowd, that whole the Bush team. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, and that's what we were talking about, the presidential stuff. I want to say I didn't get to watch Tucker's interview, but he made a lot of headlines, and I thought 8 years ago that same forum by a religious political group, a bunch of evangelicals. They didn't have Tucker 8 years ago. They had, what's his name, Frank Lutz. And I remember him famously interviewing Trump, and Trump said he's never asked God forgiveness for anything. And wrong answer.
He said he's never felt he needed to.
Yeah.
That was the statement. That was the statement. He never felt he needed to ask forgiveness.
That's Andy's candidate. Yeah. But you listen, that cost Trump. He did not win Iowa. My guy, Ted Cruz, won Iowa.
Right.
Okay. But Trump has come around. Now Trump invites any spiritual support he can get.
Right. But he's not showing up in Iowa.
He chose not to go this time.
Right.
And not that he and Tucker aren't good friends.
Oh, no. I'm not saying anything with him and Tucker. It's him in Iowa.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's him in Iowa. Yeah.
I still
said,
think he's going to win Iowa.
Oh, I do too.
Yeah, and in fact, Tucker, another big headline. He came unglued at Mike Pence.
Oh yeah.
And we told you here, Mike Pence is being propped up by the industrial military complex, and it has showed. And no, Pence and Tucker did not have harmonious kumbaya. So anyway, that's my little story from.
Yeah, Mike Pence. No, Tucker and Mike got into it. It was particularly over Ukraine.
Yeah.
And you know how I feel about it, and I think Dave feels pretty much the same. In fact, that's one thing I was going to do in that. Darn it, that was a clip that I did want to play. It was on my phone this morning. I don't think I can find it. Probably, if I could, I would. But there was a clip I found this morning where the people were trying to assert that Donald Trump was, it was during that town hall on CNN where Trump supposedly did not want to get involved in Ukraine because he didn't care. But that wasn't it at all. He clearly said, and this lady, the girl that was doing the interview, no, I can't find it, I'm sorry. But anyway, the girl on CNN that held that town hall, do you remember the town hall that he did? And she tried to, in different ways, to get him, to trick him into saying, or goad him into making a statement about, does he support Ukraine or Russia? He came through, or who does he want to win? That was her statement. Do you want Ukraine or Russia to win? Who do you want to win?
Yeah.
And he says, it's not about winning. It's about people dying. He was so clear. He came back clearly. He said, I don't want people to die.
Yeah.
And he was so clear on that. And that's the clip that I was going to play.
You know,
and that's what people don't understand. A lot of people have attacked me on Facebook. This was way back when it first began. I've always had this position because I did not see a winner in this. I did not see Ukraine winning. I always saw this as a situation where Russia has been moving, or Russian citizens moving into that eastern Ukraine area, the Donbass, for years and years. Here's what it reminds me of. Years ago, before World War II, actually World War I and II, the Czech Republic, or Czechia, they call it now. Yes, they changed the name again.
Yes, we found out from our Kralachek, Joe Kralachek.
They keep changing the name, Czechia.
Yeah.
But anyway, it kept moving the border.
Yeah.
Germany, Czech.
Yeah.
The people still speak German there. I mean, they speak the same language. They just keep moving the border. Well, so, and finally, Hitler decided to take over and make it Germany. And then, the Czechs decided, no, we wanted this, So anyway, and what I didn't realize is if you go up just a little bit north, like the, what river is it that, it's the Caspian Sea to a point, right? That separates Russia and Ukraine. But if you go up to the north...
Well, Black Sea.
Oh, the Black Sea. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The Caspian is over there as well.
Yeah, further east.
A little further. But anyway, the Black Sea, right. But at the north of the Black Sea, the landmass comes together, and it's Russia and Ukraine. They border each other. And you got... This is Russia, and then you've got Ukraine. And so anyway, what I'm getting at is this. So you've got all these people here that think they're Russian. They say they're Russian. And the Ukrainians say, no, this is ours. No, we're Ukrainian, we're Russian, we're Ukrainian, we're Russian. So it's basically a dispute between these two. It's a land dispute.
Yeah.
That's what the real... well, let me finish. So realistically, this is what's, I mean, honest, this is what started the whole deal. Okay? Now, when Trump was there, he was willing to say, okay, if this is the dispute, let the people that live in the area settle this dispute between this land area. Okay? When they vote, if these people say they're Russian, let it be Russian. If these people are going to say they're Ukrainian, let it be Ukrainian. But this is it. We know there's a line right here.
Yeah.
The Ukrainians want to say, no, it's ours. Russians want to say, no, it's ours. And you tell Vladimir, no, it's not yours. It's whatever these people say.
Yeah. In other words, stay out of it.
Stay out of it. And to me, that was no sense in going to war. Why are you going to kill? And this is what I kept trying to say on Facebook. Why are you going to kill thousands of people over this strip of land here and beautiful areas, and you're going to destroy all of this property that when you win, I know your thoughts in Ukraine is, oh, it's okay. We'll just get America to rebuild it for us. I mean, I know that's the thinking. But this is my whole thinking on the deal. All they had to do is say, okay, if this is truly what it is, if this is what you want. And see, now it's too late because now you've got basically the Russians have taken over more land, more people in there. Now if you surrender, you don't even have people in there to vote anymore at all to try to take it back.
Right. But what I want to say...
It's just a mess. It's just a total mess.
Let's bring this home and try using some analogies in the Western Hemisphere.
Okay.
Imagine Fidel Castro invading Miami because of all the Cubans there who speak Spanish. Imagine Mexico saying, you know what, we want everything within 100 miles north of the Rio Grande because they still speak Spanish generations later. You can't use the language they speak to say who has the moral right.
Right. No. Right. No. I agree. That's the deal. But you see, there's one big difference in Fidel. Okay. Fidel does not border
90 miles. Yeah.
Right.
But what I say, you can't use language to determine it, because otherwise you'd have no Revolutionary War.
Oh, no, that's true. Right. But I don't see a bunch of people in Arizona, New Mexico, and California and Texas saying we want to be a part of Mexico.
Yes. Now, what you do see out in the eastern half of Oregon, a bunch of people voting that we want out of Oregon, we become part of Idaho. And that is what we call autonomy, or self-determination.
Should they be allowed to do it?
Self-determination. Well, that's a good point. But
no. Answer. What do you think? Do you think it should be?
Our Constitution says you don't take land away from a state without that state's permission. That's in the U.S. Constitution.
Okay. Then that settles it, right? So they're not. They should not be allowed to do it.
We violated that when we created West Virginia. We didn't ask the state of Virginia because we were in a
Civil War.
Yeah, the Civil War.
Right.
And so you can't have it both ways.
Right. Okay. But so basically now, essentially, if the people in Texas, Arizona, California, New Mexico, if you get the people rising up and saying, we don't like the United States anymore, we want to become Mexico. Now, I sincerely doubt that the people in those areas want to become Mexico, right? I mean, but if they did, it's yours.
Yeah.
That's what I say. And in fact, there's a friend of mine, I can't think of his name right now, but he wrote a book. It's called Mexifornia.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, this book is 20 years old. It didn't sell a whole lot, but and his idea was to annex Mexico. His was the reverse idea. He wanted the United States to annex Mexico, take over the whole country.
Well,
and then by doing that, then send our military and we quell all of the cartels, put our law enforcement in there, and then as far as making it monetarily viable, there's lots of gold and oil and everything down there. It's very rich. I mean, which is really weird because Mexico has a lot of resources. They just don't know how to use them.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
You just, for historical perspective, wasn't it in 1898, we invaded Mexico, went all the way down to Mexico City. And because they were still claiming part of the U.S., and we kind of settled that.
Yeah.
And, New Mexico and Arizona, they belong to us. We drew the map and said, the rest of it, you can have it.
Right.
We didn't want to keep it.
Right. But anyway, he kind of just turned the tables on, saying, okay, we're gonna annex you.
Yeah.
So we take all of Mexico and we take all their resources, all of those coastal towns, all those beach towns, and we make them ours. And then all of the tourist income, everything, it becomes ours. And we just totally revitalize Mexico. Now, the only problem with that today is America's going the wrong way. We would end up destroying the rest of America instead. We'd become Mexico instead of Mexico because this was written in the 90s when there was still hope.
Yeah.
Today, there's no hope because the Democrats have destroyed our country so badly.
And Mexico has so collapsed. The cartels have become so wealthy in the last 10 years.
Through China.
Yeah, through all of the immigration exploitation. But, on the other hand, there is a book I actually wrote a book review for by an Oklahoman, Richard Engel, wrote The Last American President. And the scenario, actually, part of the book happens here in Tulsa with an ORU professor. It was one of the characters. But a guy becomes president after serving as a governor of Kansas. And he, it was during his term that first the native Hawaiians wanted their island back. Puerto Rico wanted to become their own nation.
Well, they are.
And what happened? Yeah, and the ball starts rolling. And all of a sudden, all of the United States, every state took their share by population of the U.S. debt and got to keep all their resources. And then Richard never did publish book 2 called Manitoba. That is a sequel to it. Several of these states then formed their own regional commonwealths, the Great Lakes, the Southeast, and all that. And there are, in fact, part of the narrative in the book was the Oklahoma legislature passed a resolution that says if a state bordering Oklahoma and also bordering the Gulf of Mexico, they didn't say Texas, but secedes, then we secede with them. And there's a lot of sentiment for that. A lot. Because remember, Texas used to be its own nation. They entered the Union as a foreign nation. When Davy Crockett went down to help them, he actually said, I'm no longer a U.S. citizen.
But that's part of the Six Flags. Yeah,
he had been part of the U.S. Congress and left in disgust and left Tennessee with a bunch of volunteers, said, let's make a new nation, start over in Texas and help these people get their independence. And it's one of the great folklore stories of American patriotism. But it wasn't about America. It was about the nation of Texas. So I do believe in, self-determination. And I think we have some barriers to that. We don't have really good history. One, by our Constitution saying, no, you need permission. And then two, the fact that how'd that work out for the 13 states in the Confederacy who actually believed what the creed said? We really don't follow it.
No.
And so I think we got some hypocrisy.
Right. But getting back to Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
Via Texas.
That's where it came from, yes.
Yeah. But no, but my thinking is that it truly goes back to President Eisenhower's 1958 speech about the the military-industrial complex.
Yes.
And, I mean, it becomes clearer and clearer every day. we unloaded now our cluster bombs, which are banned by several NATO countries. But no, we find use for. We're going to unload them now on Ukraine, so they can use them against the dastardly Russians. And I mean, we're just incrementally.
Yeah,
I understand we're sending F-16s over for some use. I don't know exactly. It's pretty undefined exactly what the F-16s are. I mean, as this commercial once said here in Tulsa, hear me now, believe me later. It was this Arnold Schwarzenegger take of it. Hear me now, believe me later. We are slowly but surely moving towards war.
Yeah.
And some of us saw it, and the only hope to stop us from that stupidity would be, I believe, Donald Trump regaining the presidency.
Yes.
If possibly one of the other Republican candidates, if they were, but I have a feeling that even if we got another Republican in there, they would be pliable by the deep state to still succumb to getting us deeper and more deeply involved. And I think Trump's the only one that could withstand it. And that's why he is going to have the fight of the life of this nation, not his life, but the fight of the life of this nation on his hands to try to win this thing. Because the deep state, the military-industrial complex, and everything, not only our military-industrial complex, but the entire world is going to be against him in this.
So, Eddie, you're an insurance guy, have been for years. You understand what a policy means as far as what's covered and what's not. And in very much the same way, a treaty such as NATO is, are we covered or we're not? And it's pretty clear. This is, if you're a NATO nation and you're attacked from outside, then all of us are compelled. We must go to war against them with you. You think about it, Ukraine's not a NATO nation. And how many billions, if not trillions, have we spent, just the U.S. alone? And we won't even send an inspector general over there to try to find out how much of that ended up getting swindled into black market. And the waste, the graft, all the issues that are there. It's so bad that I project by this time next year, a big presidential debate topic will be, why should the U.S. continue to spend money to protect Eastern Europe from each other?
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the money that Germany and France in particular, Germany in particular is the closest to the Ukraine.
Yeah, well, they've got the industrial machine.
Right. And France really has, I mean, they have spent, Germany has invested some money. Okay, they're sending their Panzer units, tanks, Panzer tanks. France has done zero, zilch. Okay, France is just not even doing anything. Yeah, go. Yeah, we need to support them, but not doing anything. England has been supporting. Other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it. And so I don't want to hear from these people. I don't want to hear anything. And you got, and the reason, I guarantee you, the reason we're doing it is because Lockheed Martin, Sikorsky,
that's it.
You name them, military-industrial complex is making money. I mean, they keeps that machine going. It just keeps the machine going. Without it, but at the same time, we're draining our own resources, and China's all for it because it keeps us down and makes it easy for them then when time comes, when we reach a certain point, they can just walk in and take over Taiwan.
Right. And this is how you know whether or not your candidate is owned by the industrial military complex. Look at their position on Ukraine. Mike Pence, owned.
Oh, totally.
Lindsey Graham, owned. And he's always been owned by the military. And and obviously Biden owned. And this is a problem because they get the money for their campaigns from the people who manufacture the munitions and the hardware and the weaponry. And it's the same way. The reason why the Democrats are bad-mouthing oil is because the states that have the oil are conservative and they put money into the conservative causes. Yeah. I mean, that's it. It's all about the politics. It's all about the graft. And I'm sorry, I'm becoming so embarrassed by our government and our political system. We've devolved to nothing more than the Crips and the Bloods. It's really, we even have their same colors.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, red and blue.
Yeah.
So we're the Bloods.
Yeah.
We're the Bloods.
It's that bad.
It is.
And it's a blood sport because, I mean, they are willing to let people die for their political ambitions.
And I guarantee you their kids are not going out to fight.
Yeah.
Here's one thing. I proposed this back on the Pat Campbell show when I was co-hosting. I said that they should put into law that in case of war or military conflict, every person in Congress, that their children should be put at the head of the list of the draft, first to go.
Yeah.
If they're between 18 and 40, they go first. And they don't get any support position. We're talking frontline position, and every one of them has to sign on this when you get sworn in that your child is ready to serve and serve on the front line.
Yeah, and that's how you know you trust them. You know how China handled the big Y2K scare. Because, I mean, there was a lot of fear that the computers were all going to crash and whatever's dependent on that. And China told all their airlines executives that, hey, by 11 o'clock,
I want you on
the 31st, you all are on a plane. And you're going to be in the air when the year 2000 hits.
That way they were going to make sure that their equipment was done right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because their butts are on the line. That's just no other way. And I think there's merit to that.
Yeah, but no, seriously, I proposed this 10 years ago. 10 years ago or so on the air, I said this should be a condition of serving in Congress, that you, to serve in case of war, you have to agree that your child is one of the first ones called up and serves on the front lines. Because if you're not willing to do that, you don't deserve to send anyone else's child.
That's true.
You don't deserve to send someone else's child to fight and die.
That was one of the things Bobby Kennedy said when he was, actually, I think it was when he was running for Senate in New York. And he was not supporting the college deferment. Now, that was a time you were, it impacted you. And because he said, what happens is the rich folk get a deferment, the poor kids go to war and die.
Yeah.
I think there's merit to that.
Yeah, it's been that way. That way you have John Kerry, supposedly, a PT boat commander or something, some kind of boat commander, whatever. It wasn't a PT boat. It was, I forget what they called those things. But he never, the people who were with him have testified that he didn't.
No, my second cousin was one of them. He was in Vietnam. I forget, what do they call those boats? But he said, he said the guy was horrible. He literally was on the boat with him.
Right.
And he just said, the guy was always looking for an excuse. And he said he would, just say, oh, yeah, I get a Purple Heart for this. And I think they said there was one of his injuries that might have actually been from conflict. The others were self-inflicted. But once you get 3 Purple Hearts, that's your ticket home. And, they said the guy's pathetic, which makes him a good politician, right? and speaking of more corruption, at this time last week, we were talking about an investigation in the White House over a powdery substance.
Yes, that has, just as the powder itself is dissipated, it's disappeared. The investigation, that is, the Secret Service said nothing to see here, nothing, no harm, no foul. So the cameras, there were no cameras in that area. We have no idea who it belonged to. We're closing the investigation.
They never interviewed a single person. Now, didn't you say we'll find out if we actually have a credible Secret Service by the done? And they failed.
They failed.
You know, because they didn't want information. G. Gordon Liddy.
Well, see, here's the problem I have with that. Anybody involved with the White House, Secret Service, anything that does with the White House should not even be involved. That should be totally FBI or D.C. police.
Now, that's a good point, because it could be theirs. I think you got a good point there. They should have just walked away, said, sorry, Secret Service is not involved. This is FBI. We're coming in and taking the case. How about the Fort Marcy Park Police, They handled Vince Foster's investigation. Remember that?
That brings something else up. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Keep that in mind. Hey, I wanted to tell you, see, I got a couple of deals here. Let's see, just to clear our palates a bit. Let's see which one I want to deal with first. Oh, yeah, the DOE, Department of Education. Okay, that's the thing, too, about Democrats. They're like rust. They just don't give up. The DOE, Department of Education, they announced Friday that it will automatically forgive $39 billion of student debt for more than 804,000 borrowers following a recent ruling by the Supreme Court that blocked the administration's plan to grant forgiveness to 40 million Americans. So they're still going with Plan B now to forgive the debt of 804,000 borrowers. It will start notifying borrowers Friday that their federal student loans will be automatically discharged in the coming weeks, according to the DOE. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 in June that the Biden administration cannot use executive power to cancel up to $10,000 in student loan debt for non-Pell Grant recipients and up to $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients. In June, the Department of Education announced that it would circumvent the Supreme Court's ruling through the use of the Higher Education Act and an expansion of the income-driven repayment plans, which would slash payments for those making $32,800 less annually to zero.
Wow.
Borrowers who miss their loan payments within the first year beginning October will not be penalized, put in default, or reported to the credit or collection agencies. So these guys, they just don't quit, whatever they...
So now, if you're not a Pell Grant recipient, which, let's face it, that means you're from a rich family, okay? You made too much money, your family did.
Right.
You get $10,000. So he's handing out $10,000 to rich families each.
That's for non-Pell Grant recipient. Yeah, $10,000.
Yeah.
And $20,000 to Pell Grant.
Right. But again, if you didn't get Pell Grant, it means you're rich.
Right.
So you get $10,000.
Right.
If you did get at least some Pell Grant,
right,
then you get $20,000.
Right.
So it means if you don't qualify for a Pell Grant, you shouldn't qualify for any loan. Listen, it's not my job to pay for grown adults higher ed. It's not my job. It's not the taxpayer's job.
Well, yeah, the whole reason you're getting the loan is so that you can finish college, so that you will have a job and money to be able to pay back the loan. Right.
Yeah. Now, I think there's merit in this reform. You give Pell Grants, but if you don't finish your degree, you got to pay that back. That would encourage people to stay in and get their degree, because the reason we're doing this.
So what you're reading into this is that you have to be a graduate to to get this.
No, I'm saying something separate. Because, listen, I disagree with the whole public funding of people's higher ed. You know, the reason it's justified on a pragmatic basis is, but they earn more income. They start companies. They hire people. These are success. They throw this narrative of the Elon Musk who graduated from Wharton, Penn, and look at all the wealth and all the jobs.
A whole lot more than $10,000 and $20,000.
I understand, but they always want to give you this picture of why it's important to invest in. Because I don't even believe we should be investing in state universities, and that because we're undermining and destroying our private universities. It's predatory, marketing. But my point is, if you're going to do this, then I think you got to have built-in incentives for people to finish their degree. And if they drop out of school, then you know what? That money we gave you in a Pell Grant, now that turned into a loan, you got to pay it back.
Now that's how they should do it.
Exactly.
No, I agree. Now they should do it that way. Mm-hmm. But if you graduate, you should also still have to pay it back, but they should make you pay it forward. See, that would be a cool way to do it. In other words, the way they do that, a really cool way to do it would be, once you graduate, that your income gets docked so much, a percentage, but it goes back to the school you graduated from.
Okay.
Let's say you finished OU, but it goes back, let's say a business school. So it goes back to the OU business school to fund future kids, low-income kids coming in the future. Yeah,
I wouldn't give it to the school to handle the money, but the same principle is like, okay, this seed money that we put into getting people educated who otherwise couldn't afford, those people now we monitor and we kind of do a line item on all of their wealth they create, the taxes that they pay. That now part of that goes back here because to further build the pot.
Well, who would you give it to if you don't give it to the school to administer?
Well, it's the federal government right now that's got the Pell Grant money.
Yeah, but see, what I would do, but eventually what I'm saying is you do it in a way that the government is giving it out, but it's like seed money, and by making it a pay forward deal, you're getting it to where you're eventually going to wean the government off. Because you're paying back to school to where the school ends up with the money, and they're the ones using it becomes...
I would not trust the schools with any of it.
Well, the problem is, as long as you leave the government involved in it, you're going to it's just going to end up... No,
I mean, there are these pseudo-government things like Fannie Mae and all that, Well,
those are...
I know, there's problems, but what I'm saying is, if you have that, now that, okay, you got your degree because the government subsidized your education. Now, on your taxes, there's going to be a special tax on you. Once your income reaches a certain threshold, another tax will kick in that goes to this Pell Grant funding agency so that it's Pell Grant gets funded out of graduates.
You just said the magic word, agency. So you just created another agency.
Well, but what are we doing now? The money's coming out of Department of Education, right?
No,
I'm saying to fund it the same way you're talking about. You got the seed money. Now, everybody that gets a graduate degree and is making over $100,000, they've got it, and they took government Pell Grants. Now they have a special tax kicks in that funds it, much like Social Security is supposed to be self-funded.
I know. I would trust the school more than the government, but as Ronald Reagan famously said, trust but verify. And then you just put a strong supervisory commission, something over them to make sure that the school properly administers it.
So the TU is going to have the money and operate the money for all the Pell Grant recipients at TU.
Yes, or OU, OSU, NSU, whatever the U is, right.
And that's part of the terms for taking Pell Grants at your...
Right, that when that money comes back in, it goes into a special fund, and they use that money that's paid back then from the prior recipients. When they're paying it back, you use that money then that goes into a fund with interest. It's invested, and then it starts being paid out to new candidates, and then the new candidates, and then when they graduate, it keeps going back.
So we then divest the federal government of the whole Pell Grant system.
Eventually, that would be,
Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life we have is a government program. They never go away.
Well, yeah, I mean, with that exactly. You really think that this 800, you really think that 800 and whatever thousand they're talking, 800,
it's 20% of who would have gotten forgiveness.
Yeah, I mean.
You went from, 4 million to 800,000. So we did drop it down to
804,000. Do you really think 804,000 is going to be the final number? No, exactly. So yeah. So.
And I think we're going to see a lawsuit on this. I don't know who against the lawsuit.
Well, yeah, because why should it only be whatever number it is? Mm-hmm. The rest of the people could sue, and then it's going to open it up. They're either going to end up expanding it, which is what they're hoping for, or not. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. A gnat got in here. Gnat's on the loose.
Yeah.
Hey, this is something interesting.
Oh, can I just check before we get into that?
Oh, okay. Another email? Or
just Alta said about the cocaine case. Trump's former press secretary says there's no cameras there, yet Trump said there were all kinds of cameras. Which is it? Yeah. I'm sorry.
Let's put it this way. Trump, there were all kinds of cameras when Trump was in the White House. Not anymore. Those were removed when you were removed. That's what happened. Yeah. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. Hey, an Obama-appointed judge reinstates red state's ban on child sex change procedures. Now, that's the good news. But a federal judge ruled Friday that Kentucky can enforce its state law, which prohibits sex change treatments for minors, according to Reuters. U.S. District Judge David Hale, an Obama appointee, decided that Kentucky can prohibit the use of puberty blockers and hormone treatments for minors after ruling in June that the state law likely violated the U.S. Constitution. Mm-hmm. The decision was made because a federal appeals court reinstated a similar ban in Tennessee ahead of the 6th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals hearing both states' cases. Mm-hmm. So he reinstated a law or a decision that another court had tossed out, mm-hmm. where basically they had ruled that parents can intervene. So parents may once again stop the school from allowing their children to be given these puberty blockers and different hormone things, which is ridiculous. You know, I remember we couldn't give our kids aspirin when our kids, you remember? Mm-hmm. You couldn't give them Tylenol, or you had to give it to the nurse or something, and then the nurse could administer it. But now they can give them puberty blockers and hormone treatments without the kids ever letting us know. I mean, that's some insane stuff. Today's ruling is a win for parents and children, a Republican Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron said. I'm grateful for the district court for doing what the law requires. Yeah. Families of transgender children sued over both Kentucky and Tennessee state laws prohibiting sex change procedures for minors and argued that the legislation takes parental rights away. Federal judges blocked both laws on June 28th in response to the lawsuits. Now, while we strongly disagree with this opinion, it's only in effect while our appeal is pending in front of the Sixth Court, said Corey Shapiro, legal
Right.
director, Americans for Civil Liberties. Now, here's the interesting part. Still, it's not a total victory yet. Similar laws are being challenged in courts across the country. In Arkansas, our neighboring state, an Obama-appointed judge blocked a state law that banned sex change procedure for children, including surgeries, puberty blockers, and hormones. On Thursday, 5 families, 3 doctors, and 2 LGBT activist organizations filed a lawsuit against a Texas law which prohibits similar procedures.
Yeah.
So, right next door, we had them find the other way, where their courts.
Yeah. Now, the guy running for president from Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, vetoed a bill that would have put these safeguards in to protect our kids from this. He left office. Sarah Huckabee Sanders comes in. She signs it, becomes law. And one of Asa's buddies in the courts, I don't know that he's Asa's buddy, but like-minded, said, oh, no, we got to do that. What I think we have to do in legislatures, in Oklahoma legislators, listen up here. We need to put in both criminal and civil protections so that the statute of limitations clock doesn't start until a kid turns 18. And a kid can file a complaint for criminal prosecution for aggravated battery and can seek civil relief from their own parents for castrating them as a kid.
Well, no, because here's the problem why that won't work. Because, as this law said, they don't have to notify the parents. So the parents won't know. He has to be able to sue the doctor.
Well, I agree. There's that too. But if the parents...
No. In the states where they do allow them to notify the parents, yes. But in this other case, they have to be able to sue the doctor and medical facility and anyone involved in that.
The norm in healthcare generally is for a minor, you need the consent of the parent. Right.
But that's the whole law here in Tennessee that it's in violation of the Constitution because they were allowing it without notifying the parents.
Yes. And that's much like what our minors getting abortions was, is we all of a sudden had the deal. And that's where it flipped on its ear, the whole thing of, hey, the parents are the ones that have to consent for minors' health care, especially when it's considered optional. Right, it's not a medically necessary thing.
Right,
it's like cosmetic surgery, getting their ears pierced, right, or a tattoo. You need.
What's so crazy to me, because associated with this article when I was looking at it, is always the case where you got these people out with these protesters and signing some crazy lesbian person, talking about protect children's health care, children's health and health care. And come on, give me a break. That has nothing to do with their health. Right. If anything, we're attacking their health. Yeah. You're removing internal body parts. You're removing organs and implanting things. And I mean, if you ever watch any video, it's heartbreaking to see the girls, and I'm just going to say it, girls that have had their breasts removed, and now they're of an age where all of a sudden they understand the ramifications of what they have done. They may have had their breasts removed at 15, 16, maybe even 14, and now you've got a 19, 20-year-old woman that has no breasts, can never get them back, and realizes, oh, what have I done? It's heartbreaking.
Well, had their ovaries removed to where they're not producing estrogen and they're not developing. The brain isn't even properly developing.
And now,
and
they will never be able to have a child.
Right.
But somehow in their mind, something is working to tell them, oh my goodness, I would love to have a child. It's the evil, David, the evil from the people that would deprive that to get a child, convince a child that at this moment you want to do this, so for the rest of your life. I can't even fathom it.
So,
it just, I don't know.
A great thing to study up, where we've been here before in history. Look up, go to Wikipedia, type in castrato. The castratos were the boys in the boys' choir, the 12-year-olds.
Vienna boys' choir.
Right, or any of them, and parents would say, let's have him castrated so he keeps that soprano voice. Without that natural occurring hormones of the testes, they don't develop properly. They were freak shows. They would grow really tall, they had heart problems, they had, a lot of issues. And socially, they became bizarre misfits. Look it up, okay? By the turn of the century, no developed country allowed it anymore. It's child abuse. And here we are in our enlightened age, and I'll put that in air quotes. We've gone back to the dark ages of treating these kids like some kind of science experiment. Now, the second part I want to say on it. In my mental health advocacy, I've served on boards, been to many conferences and stuff, and we've talked about people's mental stability who have this dysphoria. And by the way, DSM books of the past listed as a mental disorder, this dysphoria. And they had a higher rate of suicide. But get this, the highest rate of suicide is people who actually had the operations. They had even higher suicide. So this narrative of, would you rather have a dead daughter or a live son, or a dead son, or get to have a still alive daughter? No. If you, as a parent, approve of this, castration, you are now putting your kid from a rather unstable situation to even more unstable situation. And that's the whole truth.
You can tell Dave really means it because he's pounding on the table with his elbow, and he accented the finish with his hand. So
there you go.
He's really into it.
Yeah. I'm not Italian, but I do talk with my hands.
As I do. I'm always need to tie my hands back. Hey, hey, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. A surprising candidate in the whole presidential thing is our man Vivek.
That's right.
Ramaswamy.
I called it.
The Swami.
He is.
He's moved into third place. He's behind, as you say, number 3 with a bullet.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Vivek is behind DeSantis, and he's a likable guy. I've got to say he's a very positive. You cannot not like Vivek Ramaswamy.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't know this, but the guy's a millionaire on his own, and he's an investment. He's got his own fund, and people invest through him. And he's got these ETFs, electronically traded funds, and it's conservative funds. So, for example, he only invests in non-woke companies. So he won't invest in anything that deals with environmental issues or ESG, any of the things that lean in that direction. He invests in things that are going to make money and are good for the United States.
Well, he agrees with the Trump axiom: whatever goes woke goes broke.
Right, exactly.
He doesn't want to go broke.
No, he doesn't want to go broke. But anyway, he's just a good guy, and it's funny. I think we talked about this last week. There are 2 people that Trump has not said anything negative against, and he and Tim Scott.
Yep.
By the way, did we talk about that? I'm related to Tim Scott.
No.
I didn't tell you that. Yeah, I just found this out from my aunt in Philadelphia, and checking my family tree.
How about that?
Yeah, that we are related. I am related to Tim Scott, the Huffs. The Huffs and the Scotts we're related.
How about that?
Yeah, we were from. We had the same master back in the.
Is that right? Go back to the
slave days.
Slave days.
Yeah, on the Huff side. The Bells, the other side of the Huff tree, the non-Huff side, the Bell side. Duke Bell was his name. He came from Jamaica. He wasn't an American-bred slave. He came from Jamaica. But on the Huff side, we came from South Carolina.
Yeah.
And, but anyway, yeah.
Yeah, Trump.
So a bit of a tidbit there that I'm related to Tim Scott, but sorry, Tim, I'm still a Trump guy.
Yeah.
But anyway, but to stay on the train, but I have a little article here on Tim that I mean, not on Tim, on Vivek. Vivek Ramaswamy said Friday that a president already had the power to shut down agencies, including the FBI, without going to Congress. So if he's elected, get this. This is this is beyond Trump. I mean, he is the most radical of all of them. He says that he will shut down the FBI if he's elected.
Oh, absolutely. And
he said he doesn't need a Congress to do it. Mm-hmm. Ramaswamy previously expressed support for shutting down the FBI following the release of a report by Special Counsel John Durham on the origins of the FBI investigation of allegations that former President Donald Trump's 2016 presidential campaign colluded with Russia. So he was already ready to do it based on what they did in 2016, right. Not even what they did after that. He also vowed to pardon people convicted in what he called politicized prosecutions, including former President Donald Trump, if he were ever to be convicted.
So when did he you said based on this Russia collusion narrative?
That was the original, right.
That's when Vivek adopted that policy about the FBI needs to be shut down.
Yes, that's when he first, and then it's just grown since then.
Yeah.
He said, I'm coming in with a clear-sighted view. He did this in an interview with Glenn Beck. He said, I'm coming in with a clear-sighted view, Glenn, of shutting down the most administrative state. Most other administrative state. He told Glenn Beck shortly after his interview with Tucker Carlson. And first of all, do it on strong legal authority, so I'm in a unique combination. I don't like to brag a lot, but I am a CIO. But I've also studied the Constitution deeply, and the Supreme Court right now shares my view on the Constitution. The U.S. president already has the statutory authority. The Presidential Reorganization Act of 1977 says you can shut down redundant agencies, Ramaswamy explained to the former Fox News host. Well, when I look at what the DEA does and what the U.S. Marshals do, there's my legal justification for shutting down the FBI without asking Congress. So what he's saying is that DEA and the U.S. Marshals do the same thing as the FBI. Right. We don't need the FBI.
Yep. There you go.
That's kind of interesting. He also said that the civil service law was being misread when it came to reducing the number of government employees. Civil service protections protect against the individual firings of employees for supposedly political reasons. They do not apply to mass layoffs, and mass layoffs are absolutely what I'm bringing. So
yes.
So I mean, the guy is he is one smart cookie,
right?
So he said what he's saying. What has been stopping Trump and others in the past is, in a sense, they're thinking too small. You can't fire this guy and this guy and this guy. Basically, what he's saying, just fire everybody.
Well, you defund the department is what you do. And Jim Inhofe said that when he became mayor here in the early 80s or late 70s, he had to fire a guy right away. This a waste. It was some cable local access TV show, This Week with the Mayor. It was just a puff thing to help him get reelected, and he fired the guy. And then a week later, he sees him in the elevator. They're going up to him. He says, "Didn't I fire you last week?" "Oh, yeah, I just got reassigned." And so he found out what he got reassigned to, and then he just defunded that whole department. And then you got to go through the hiring process again. He never made it through.
He made sure that guy didn't
exactly.
Boy, he really didn't like that guy.
Yeah. But I remember Gingrich was dealing with the same thing when he took office, and he said, unashamedly, he says, "Oh, not only are we not going to have 80% employees, we're probably going to sell the building because we don't need the building by the time we get done consolidating." Scared the heck out of the administrative state.
I can imagine.
Because they knew Gingrich had the power to do it.
Right. But it's very smart, and what he's doing though is he's also giving the keys to other candidates.
Oh yeah,
he's probably sending shockwaves because now the Democrats know and the bureaucrats know. If he is telling everybody this, others can use the same thing.
Here's the thing about Vivek: he is not afraid. He is politically incorrect as can be. He calls the whole sex change, transgender. He says it's all a mental illness. Most of them will not say that. But he says, look, the DSMs for decades have identified it as a mental illness. All of a sudden, political correctness comes in politics, and now all of a sudden our universities don't teach it anymore.
It's interesting, too. I think they're afraid to attack him. See, somehow they've been able to use black liberals to attack black conservatives.
Yeah.
So they're able to go after black because they have cover. They don't have any liberal Indians.
No. Or Pakistanis.
Right. They don't have any of that.
Yeah.
So they don't have anybody. So they can't do it because if they do it, they're in trouble. Then they're racist. So they're back there probably trying to find somebody that they can get, that they can get.
Well, yeah, it's like, I forget who this reporter is from some African news service that's getting under
Simon Atiba.
Yeah, who's getting under Pierre's skin.
My goodness, it's funny.
Because he's an authentic African.
Right.
And she's not.
I follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
I get his stuff every day. I mean, the guy's prolific, and he is one of the smartest people because he'll send these, we're talking like 2-page long dissertations about historical stuff that you never even considered. Like in 1743, so-and-so did this in Europe, and this happened, and all over the world. And you're saying, what? This happened, and this, and this? He gives you all this. The guy is just unbelievably brilliant. He's not stupid at all. And he represents not just his country. He's from, I believe he's from Ghana, but he represents all of West Africa.
We're the third world country.
Yeah, West African news service. So they can't afford to mess around with him too much because they're going to tick off all these West Africans, and these West African presidents and things don't mess with our man Simon. So yeah, they're it's a precarious deal, and they don't like what's her name, Jean-Pierre anyway, because she may be cute and to the Americans a cutesy black lesbian. Well, they don't like cutesy black lesbians, or she'll be burned at the stake in Africa. So I ain't going over, as I say, homie, don't play that in Africa. So.
Yeah. By the way, so Ramaswamy said, he's like, defund the FBI, shut it down. And he says, it goes all the way back to the whole Russian collusion narrative. Well, guess what? Tulsa has a connection. We are the depository for used up federal judges who were used by the FBI and the Clinton campaign to get the FISA warrants to wiretap Donald Trump's office. a federal judge, Mike Mossman, is sitting on the bench here in downtown Tulsa at the Page Belcher courts. And I know this because my son-in-law was a juror, in a trial that Mossman, was presiding over. And it was one of these McGirt retrial. Mm-hmm. Somebody was already found guilty in district court. Now we have to retry in federal court. And I think that's why he was sent here, because all these federal judges are helping Oklahoma deal with their backlog. And so I'm looking it up like, oh my God, this is the guy who bought the narrative on the Steele dossier. And so he's good enough to deliver justice for Tulsa, but basically is used up. He's no longer with the FISA court, because I'm sorry, you failed, Mossman.
Well, here's the deal. Okay, to be fair to Mossman, okay, or any of the FISA court judges, I think all of those judges were hoodwinked, not just by the Democrat, or be it Obama, Biden, whoever, Hillary, that whole bunch. I think they got hoodwinked all the way back to Bush. When that court was set up, they were set up to basically rubber stamp these, search and seizure things.
Right, but if you're a judge, a federal judge, FISA or not, and you find out that you've been lied to by the top-level FBI.
Well, yeah, that's true.
That's where you do findings of contempt.
Well, yeah. I don't know if it works that way. I don't know if they go back to you to go back against, in other words, the original FISA judge for that, where they go to another judge to overrule and come down on those people for a prior problem. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I do know.
I mean, it could be. I don't know. I'm just saying, do they go back to you or do they go to somebody else? I know I would be ticked off.
Well, I got to know a district court judge here in Tulsa. It had to do with mental health and having people committed to a state mental facility. And she said, once this court makes a finding that they need treatment, they need the assistance, that she says it comes back automatically for my review every 30 days. As long as the government has initiated an action under this court's authority, then that comes under review every 30 days. Now, that's state, I know it, but that's kind of the principle of, if Mossman has authorized this wiretapping, then I believe he has the moral, probably legal standing to say, what happened on that? Where's it at,
Yeah, sure. No, if you're right. If he did have that, then he should have. You're right.
So what they did was they then reassigned him somewhere else. Now all of a sudden, maybe his FISA court that he presided over, but now it's a different judge.
Yeah.
And they shipped him out to Oregon and made him chief judge of the federal courts in Oregon, and now they got him running circuit up here handling McGirt cases in Tulsa.
Right.
And I just want Oklahoma to know that this guy who allowed wiretapping of the Trump campaign is here in Tulsa.
Yeah. No.
And look, no safe quarter. You're going to know about it.
Yeah.
Because we all should be accountable. Any government officer, official, office holder of any kind, you know what? You're going to have to face the people, because we are governed by consent of the people.
Yeah. No. That's true. Hey, are you familiar with the Moms for Liberty?
Yes.
They apparently must be doing some good. They must be growing, and they must be making an impact, because a Democrat in New Hampshire, essentially, basically was so upset by him, he called them a-holes with casseroles.
Yeah. Well, Bobby Kennedy threw him under the bus, too.
And he call, and this person also called them the Taliban in minivans. Mm-hmm. So they must be doing some kind of damage if it used that kind of language, because that's pretty strong.
Yeah. And really, I mean, these are a bunch of people that started going to school board meetings during the COVID era. They organized, and it was much over COVID policy, and then became about the pornography in the libraries and the transgender stuff and the Project 1619 critical race.
Right.
These are issues, and they argue from the standpoint of parents need to consent to these things before our kids get indoctrinated. We need to know what's going on. And it's about being informed as parents about what your kids are being subjected to. What happened when Kennedy had the forum, I think it was NBC, interviewed him or did a town hall, and somebody got up and alleged that they're against gay rights. Well, I don't remember anywhere where Moms for Liberty came out with a position of saying we oppose gay rights. What they're about is parental rights.
Right.
But they're being twisted. It's just like the Don't Say Gay bill. That was never about whether or not you could say gay.
Right.
It was about whether our third graders are going to be indoctrinated in it.
Right.
You know,
so was it actually a case of Bobby bringing them in, or was it someone that alleged something that they said?
Somebody
and he was responding to the person.
Okay.
You know how, I mean, the reason I'm saying that is because you remember they used to say Trump said this, and then somebody would respond.
Right. Here's what was specifically, they said, and this was somebody from the audience who, of course, they screened all the questions, so NBC wanted this guy to have the microphone, and said, you accepted an invitation to speak to Moms for Liberty. Mm-hmm. And then when he got found out, and the, LGBTQXYZ found out about it, then you rescinded it. And then Bobby Kennedy said, I've always supported the right of individuals to decide, what kind of relationships, who they love and everything. And he basically threw them under the bus, saying that they're against gay rights.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So he basically bailed on his invitation to speak.
He did, okay. And then he also, by not questioning, he, by inference, accepted the whole narrative the speaker in the audience had about, how they paint Moms for Liberty. Because he's trying to get Democrats to support him.
Right.
And he's making that decision. He's not going to get very many primary voters who are also Moms for Liberty.
Right.
But I'm still disappointed because truth is still truth.
Truth is truth. That's right.
Yeah.
No, I just want to be clear, on what he actually said. So that's good. No, you can't do that. You gotta stick up.
We do have some more issues with judges in Oklahoma.
Yeah, one other thing, just getting back to the whole slew of people that came before the House. I mean, we touched in the pre-show show for our Facebook audience, but John Kerry and Christopher Wray came before Congress this week. John Kerry came, he was, neither one of them were happy. I mean, that's the beauty of our House. These Republicans, they're not mincing words. They're really giving them a hard time. But essentially, John Kerry, they were essentially calling him a hypocrite for the fact that he uses a private plane, but he's talking about pollution and saving the planet and all of these things, wanting to curb greenhouse gases and all this, but at the same time flying his wife's private jet. And he tried to lie and say, well, we don't own a private jet. Well, they've sold it now, but even though they sold it, he still leases private jets. I mean, the guy is so squirrely, just trying to squirm his way around and mince words. He still flies private jets. He decided they would sell the family private jet, and it wasn't his. It was his wife's strictly speaking, but it's like me saying, because we have a car that I call my car that's parked outside, and our other car is the one my wife drives. I said, oh, that's not my car. That's my wife's car.
Yeah. And, you think of all the houses. If you look at the Tulsa county clerk's roll, it's getting to be at least 20% of the homes are put in the name of a trust. And when it's in a trust, that it belongs to this incorporation.
Right.
And so what Kerry did and his wife, they created, I'm sure they have several trusts for different things.
It's his wife's trust.
In fact, remember the big thing when he was running for president, and he had this big luxury yacht.
The Teresa Hines.
And he moved that yacht from outside of Boston on the marina there, moved it down to, I believe it was Rhode Island, where he didn't get charged the taxes and the registration fees that he signed into law or advocated, in Massachusetts. So it's the kind of thing where you create a way to stick it to the little guy, but you're the big guy, and you've got all the lawyers and accountants showing you the tricks of how to get around it. Yeah. So he still has a plane, and if you were standing out of the airport and he's driving up to get in, and you up and you kick the tires, and he'd say, "Hey, that's my plane."
Yeah.
But then he'll tell Congress, "Well, I don't own a plane."
Right, exactly. Well, I thought it was Teresa's plane.
Yeah. It's, it's a shell game.
Yeah, it is. No, exactly. So anyway, but they got him pretty good. He showed his anger a few times there, but they were really letting him have it over the ecological issues. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was Christopher Wray. They broke through his veil of, he tries to play coy as well, but they got him on January 6th and the going after Trump and the different things that the behavior of the FBI, how they've been treating Trump versus Hillary and the Bidens since then, which is still just, honestly, it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. All of the things they found on the Bidens that they're just letting slide, and then what they essentially haven't found on Trump that they're trying to still get him for, it's just unbelievable. Yeah. It's just unbelievable. But that's what we're dealing with, and I'm still sticking to the scripture. I'm claiming it over Donald Trump. No weapon formed against him shall prosper. Mm-hmm. That's what I just believe that. I believe that. Yeah. It hasn't till now, and I'm believing that scripture is going to hold.
So, in Oklahoma.
The floor is yours. The table. Just don't pound on it, okay?
Okay. Right. In Oklahoma City, the district court, the county courthouse there for years was a Judge Henderson. Henderson was one of the big wigs amongst judges. In fact, if Pat Campbell was alive today, he would be saying, "Aha, I told you Daniel Holtzclaw didn't get justice," because it was Henderson's court that sentenced him to essentially life.
For the people who don't know about Daniel Holtzclaw, he was accused of, he was a police officer, correct? Mm-hmm. Accused of raping several women on police stops.
Yeah, and I think his dad had been a cop. It's kind of a family heritage in law enforcement. Well, David Prater, a Democrat, had been the district attorney for years and years and years. And it ends up, Prater had several female assistant district attorneys and prosecutors that evidently had been pimped out to servicing Henderson's sexual interests.
Oh, my goodness.
And what do you know? Henderson's always, siding with prosecution. And what do you know? And so
how does this relate to Daniel Holtzclaw?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because I was actually at a hearing at Tulsa County Court a couple months ago, and during a break, I'm telling a guy, find out he's sent there by Gentner Drummond, Drummond had appointed him to a position. I said, so what'd you do before that? He says, I actually was assistant district attorney under David Prater. And I brought up about the Holtzclaw. And this guy got animated. Holtzclaw's guilty of sin, you know. And I said, so who handled the prosecution on that one? He says, I did. So I'm like, okay. But what I'm saying is whether the female prosecutors are actually in that courtroom handling that case or not doesn't matter. Henderson's getting it on, and there's favors being exchanged. So this became so well known that finally Governor Stitt calls on the OSBI, Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation, to investigate him. And as soon, I mean, Stitt hardly walked away from the microphone, and you had a press release from David Prater says, oh, we need to look into this guy. He seems to have real problems going on. And this guy owns him. David Prater owned Henderson, Judge Henderson. And so sure enough, he resigns, Henderson does, right away. And it's up to Prater whether or not we are going to charge this judge with corruption. And what do you know? Prater decides, no, there's nothing to see here. We're not going to prosecute him. Because Prater would have to prosecute himself.
Yeah.
Whoever accepts the bribe is as guilty as who offers the bribe.
Wow.
And Prater just decides not to run for another term.
So now the other question is, what does it do to the cases that he was involved in?
Well, that's another criminal case, a first-degree murder case this week announced, yeah, he gets a new trial. Because all they have to do, those defendants, is go to the Court of Criminal Appeals and say, it was a corrupt judge. And we haven't even found the depths of his corruption because the government's covering up the investigation.
And Holtzclaw gets a new trial?
No. Holtzclaw's like the only one who seems to not be getting a new trial.
So how is that?
I don't know. But I'm telling you, one of Gettner Drummond, our Attorney General, one of his top associates, worked for David Prater and actually was lead prosecutor on the Holtzclaw case. So I think if this guy who's telling me during the court recess, Holtzclaw's guilty of sin, he's probably saying that and more to Gettner Drummond, his new boss. And, you know.
But if somebody really is working it and wants to make a name for themselves, they could probably.
I think somebody should. And you know, Michelle, what's her name?
Yeah, I know who you mean.
From
I can't remember her name now either.
From Colorado Springs. Yeah, she's
the Asian girl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
used to be on with Pat all the time.
Right. I mean, I don't know who was funding this,
right? But
somebody was helping pay her bills because she committed a lot of resources to this. And still nothing. So we've got problems administering equitable justice in Oklahoma, and it's getting worse.
Sounds like it. I thought I read something else about the Attorney General. There was another case. There was something else going on with him. There was a conflict of interest.
Stitt has got an issue.
Yeah.
Stitt has actually come out with a position.
With the tribes.
Yeah, Stitt actually wrote to the legislature, open letter, say, I don't have to use the Attorney General to represent the governor's office if I see a problem with it. Gettner Drummond got a lot of money and a lot of support from the Indian tribes. And he advocated strongly for their right to continue on this expired compact on gaming, on the Class 3 gaming and stuff. So Gettner he's taken campaign money on this issue. And so right now the tribes are suing the governor, and people are saying, well, the attorney general has to represent the governor, in this lawsuit where he's defending.
Right.
Well, Stitt doesn't want the guy who agrees with the other side defending him.
Right.
And he's already come out publicly on that. Mm-hmm. So Stitt is saying, look, I need my own counsel, and I think there's some appropriation involved in this. And so the legislature's got to be involved if it reaches that point.
Well, it makes sense to me, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. You want to get involved in politics and political issues and stuff like this. This is where it ties your hands. Because now all of a sudden you have to recuse yourself. You just have to. Yeah. And so you've got that going on. Gettner Drummond is asking the courts to vacate the Glossop conviction. Remember, he was literally, hours away from the gas chamber, or the deathbed, right, to be sentenced to death and stuff. And he's gotten some stays. And legislative groups have gotten involved. Outside groups have gotten involved. It does look like, it looks like David Prater's office, or actually maybe it was his predecessor, saw two people and cut a deal with one if they would turn state's evidence so that he could at least get one of them put to death. And sadly, you know how it goes. The person who is the most motivated is usually the one who wants the deal.
Yeah, the first one in there.
Yeah, the guy with the powder on his hand is the one who wants to point the finger at somebody else. And so that's what it looks like here. So we got problems in, our prosecution, our state prosecution, from the Attorney General's office on down. We got problems with our state courts, and now they're sending us these FISA corrupt judges in our federal courts.
Oh, man.
Oklahoma's got some real problems, and we need to pay attention to
Well, it goes higher than that.
Yeah.
It goes all the way to the top, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah. The only other thing I had in mind...
It reminds me of, hold that thought, but it reminds me of scripture in the Old Testament, in Ezekiel, and about just, your judges are corrupt and your leaders are corrupt. Everything, basically everything about you is corrupt. Mm-hmm. All of those leaders in your country are. Ezekiel just is riddled with that, where he's just letting them know that your whole society is corrupt.
Right. And the result of that was they were taken over by a foreign country and held as slaves in captivity in Babylon for 70 years.
You think we're going to China? Better start working on that new language. Babel.
Yeah. I mean,
Babel.com. Get ready.
Let's face it, much of what honoring God isn't so much in the creeds, is just do right. Yeah. Treat your fellow man justly. What is they asked Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Love God, and the second, love your neighbor.
The only difference, though, this time is I don't think that's not going to happen because Jesus is coming back, and we're not going into captivity again. He will destroy it. The earth will be destroyed. I believe we're going into the period of Revelation. Too much points to that more than the tribulation, the whole second coming, and the end of all things. To me, more than us going into another captivity.
That may be God's strategy, and I can't disprove it, but I know it cannot be my strategy. Because you can't...
No, we're not giving up hope. That's what you're trying to say.
I remember...
Right. Oh, yeah, no, I'm with you.
September of 1988, when the book says that on Rosh Hashanah, that's when Jesus is coming back. And there's people quit paying their mortgage payments.
Oh, no. No, that's not me. I remember, listen, when I got saved the summer of 73, June 8th, 1973. Chuck Smith. Mm-hmm. like I said, I got saved at Jesus Chapel, which was one of the churches of Calvary Chapel. Okay? And so Chuck Smith just happened to be in Israel at the time when the 7-day the war broke out,
The Yom Kippur
War, and he was writing home. Okay, this is it. Jesus, if he doesn't come back tonight, it's tomorrow. You know, Chuck was ready. I mean, everybody at Calvary Chapel and Jesus, everybody was expecting the rapture at any moment. And so we all thought, everybody thought it was happening right away. And I was too young to know.
Yeah.
I personally no longer, I know I'm going to disappoint a lot of my people out there. I know out there, I no longer believe in a rapture, okay? I'm sorry to disappoint. But anyway, but I've come to the point where as long as we have breath, I believe we're supposed to continue to.
He said, Terry, till I come.
Exactly. So I will speak, I will preach, I will do my part until he comes or until I go.
Yeah.
And so, no, I'm just saying, but I do believe I see signs of that coming. I see signs of tribulation in the United States. I see the church not doing its job, all around.
Because, I mean, the Bible is replete with stories about God's judgment. Did you know, 2 weeks ago, headlines came out, some archaeologists actually found the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah.
Really?
They were much further north than what people thought. And it just, when they found it, they said, well, this makes sense. I don't know why people weren't looking here. And they actually found, those cities. And it's right along the Jordan River before it gets to the Red Sea.
Did they find the statue of salt? No, I'm just,
there's a lot of excavating to do. But
hey, you had a couple more things.
I saw a story, a follow-up story on a young boy who's now an adult in his late 30s. And he is a state legislator in the nation of Cuba. His name is Elian Gonzalez. And he seems to be doing well. And he has risen to leadership positions. And for those of you who are old enough, you remember in the 90s, the big global debate over whether or not, now Elian's dad stayed in Cuba, but his mother, who had divorced his dad, along with a few other adults, escaped on a boat.
Brought him here,
but
she died.
Mom died
on the trip.
He gets to shore, and Janet Reno is our attorney general. She's from Miami, and Bill Clinton, and they said, look, U.S. law is very clear about custody. Mom's dead. Even though it's divorce, Dad now gets custody. Well, there's a bunch of us who felt it was our patriotic duty to say, but he belongs in America. And we stood
You were
by.
one of those, right?
I was. I'm not anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. I live in America. I love America. But what many of us were advocating is for vacating Elian's father's parental rights. Why? Because he's a Cuban.
He's a dirty communist.
Yes. And so we were like, give him to aunt and uncle who came here earlier as refugees. And, the kids escaping. Well, it's like, okay, at what age does somebody get to seek asylum? Do we allow a 12-year-old? Do we allow an 8-year-old? Do we allow a 4-year-old to declare, I want asylum? At what point do kids speak for themselves? Because you and I both agree we shouldn't be allowing kids to get castrated at 15. Right? So where are you, Eddie, on this? What's your position now?
I think my I have mixed emotions on the deal.
Yeah,
I do.
It's a powerful case.
Yeah, it is.
Emotionally.
My heart says because the mother died, particularly because the mother died. I think that was the main thing. She died to let her son grow up in a free country. That was the one part, and then the other part was maybe the way it was handled. Not so much.
Oh, it was brutal.
Yeah, the way it was handled, I think, did as much damage in my mind as anything else.
Well, the feds came in guns blazing.
Right, and the big picture of the guy with the gun and the little kid in the closet and the whole deal.
With the uncle, yeah.
Right, but ultimately, I think you're right that, if I were the dad, my wife took off to another. For example, remember all the movies in the 70s where the Muslims, the Muslim dad and the Christian mother or American mother, and then the father goes on trip and takes the child to a Muslim country, and and the mother doesn't get to, and the kid is raised a Muslim, and the mother never gets to see the kid again, and then we send these teams, SEAL team, retired SEALs, and they go back and kidnap the kid back, stuff like that. So I don't know. It's a tough one, and the sentimental me and the communist hating me feels that I wish the kid could have stayed. But ultimately, as a father, I think the father did have a right to get his son back. Yeah. I mean, ultimately, which I think is what you've gravitated to as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a tough one, But yeah, I think. I mean, I hate I'll tell you the other thing that made it so bad was the fact that it was Bill Clinton. I mean, that's the real. I think that really made it the worst. Well, see, had it been another president, I think, let's say it had been George Bush, W. Bush. I think he probably would have come to the same conclusion. I think ultimately, legally. Had it been, was it adjudicated in the court? Or did Clinton just decide, no, we're giving him back? See, I don't remember. See what
Reno was the point person on it.
Okay. See what should have happened, it should have actually gone through an international court.
No, I think it actually went through an embassy kind of or consulate type situation where the Cuban government represented Elian's father.
Okay.
And in fact, I remember they arranged for him to fly to Miami. The Cubans paid for that flight. It was a private flight, and pick him up and fly him back.
Okay.
And so it was done on the international, almost like a UN type, deal.
Yeah. See, and that's, I mean, if it was done and should have been done in the legal manner and everything, I think ultimately, it should have been.
Yeah.
He should have been able to get his son back. I mean, I would want my son back.
Now, Janet Reno, you have to think of this in terms of what's her legacy already, because
was there a legacy?
It was right after the Branch Davidian raid, and then you had the fallout of that ends up with the Oklahoma City Murrah building bombing because Bob Ricks ends up, because he's buddies with Frank Keating. Keating hires him to be one of the top cops here. And the Murrah building just became, since it was his office, or several officed in there. So this thuggery narrative of the federal government, and Ruby Ridge was before that.
Yeah, that was a bad one. See,
the ATF.
Yeah.
It's that coming in with the overpowering force.
Yeah.
It looked like police state type stuff. And it just offended our sensibilities.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's what I think made it so bad. If it had just been a normal situation, look, the mom is dead, the mom's gone, the cousins in Miami, probably nice people, they would give him a good home, et cetera, et cetera. But listen, flip it around. If the mom took him to Cuba and left him here, what would you want? You would want him to come back to the dad. I mean, it's just, It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And our federal government, now keep in mind, they had already ordered the child to be, sent back. Right. So this wasn't by the family, the relatives, aunts and uncles, and that they were defying the federal orders.
Right.
So it should have surprised nobody that they came in, because keep in mind, they came late at night. They killed all the cell towers and everything, so that so your opponent's blind.
Yeah, well, forget that. You can say the ABC, CBS, NBC, they're all there with cameras. All the lights,
Yeah.
They killed a cell tower, but you had all the TV networks there. Yeah. That's just crazy.
But see, I brought this narrative up of one of the ways which we rethink years later.
Yeah.
And did we get duped? For instance, I was all for invading Iraq. Now I think that was a stupid move.
Yeah, that's when that truth everybody has since.
Trump was one of the first ones to boldly say.
He was there all the way back,
Yeah. And, I mean, it rattled a lot of people when he came out, in 15 and 16. In fact, it was this weekend. It was in front of, Frank Luntz questioning him in Iowa, just like we're seeing again. So, things like that. This thing they call the Patriot Act is as unpatriotic as can be.
Yeah.
But I was for it. And you look at all these things that people did with COVID.
What's his name? The guy, whistleblower on the NSA. That's in Russia. Snowden.
Yeah.
There's another one. I mean, he blew the whistle on what was going on there.
Yeah. Now, here's where you can tell who's part of deep state and who's not. Snowden, to me, did a patriotic thing. The people who want him prosecuted are basing their argument on what he did to harm agencies. He was an enemy of the deep state.
Right, not the state.
Right.
the deep state. Yeah.
You remember the movie
with Will
Smith. Yeah, Enemy of the State.
It was deep state. Oh, it was Enemy of the State.
You're right.
Right, Enemy of the
State. But in
yeah.
reality, he was enemy of the deep state.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
He was not an enemy of the people.
Right.
He was an enemy of the state.
The deep state.
Yeah. So, somebody once said, and I stole it off Facebook, that a war is when the government tells you who the enemy is. A revolution is when you figure it out for yourself. I don't like patriotism being co-opted by our military. How we define patriot is whether or not you served.
Right.
Well, first of all, I serve every day. That's service. Do not redefine serve as whether or not you wore a uniform of our military.
See again, right. That's why, again, it's I'm saying that with Ukraine, okay, with this whole Ukrainian conflict, I do not want someone sending my grandkids to fight in Ukraine when they're sitting in D.C. and their kids are sitting in some Ivy League school,
right?
Partying on weekends,
and
then those same kids will later on call my grandkids baby killers. I mean, which is what happened during Vietnam.
Right. You remember during the Iran-Iraq War in the Basra Peninsula and the brutal thing. Our position as the United States, this is the later 80s, was we're not on either side. Fact is, we hope they both lose. If it's possible for both to lose, we hope they do. And I remember the week that the war started in Ukraine, when Russia invaded, I was working on a house, and a plumber there was actually from Russia, and near the area, but he was from the Russian side. And I said, are there any good guys in this? He said, both sides are wrong.
Yeah.
And he said, the United States, the West generally, needs to stay out of it because it's a tar baby. You know, you need to stay out.
Yeah, you get stuck in.
Stay out of the briar patch.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing, folks. I have been snookered. He's even been snookered. I admitted it. Just kidding.
No, yeah.
We've been snookered from time to time, and we got to be careful. Pat Robertson famously once said, you know, he was a Yale graduate attorney, and he said, something I remember in law school is hard cases make bad precedent, make bad law. And I think the Elian Gonzalez thing was one of those where Reno came out looking like the bad guy. Clinton looked like the bad guy.
Yeah.
In reality, they were standing up for parental rights, and we weren't.
That's true, because it was a political issue. It was not. It became political. It's because of who was behind it.
Yeah.
See, had it been Bush,
Yeah.
we would have said, "Oh, okay, I understand." And all, but see, this is the problem too. See, Clinton never presented it as a parental issue, really. All Clinton had to do is go on TV and clearly define and say, look, here's the situation. The mother had the right to bring the child seeking freedom, etc.
I know.
Once the mother perished, the father is the only one with a legal right. Imagine if you're a father, you're a mother, it's your child, you want your child. Had it been presented in that, people could have understood, but no. We're sending it back, sending the troops.
He did miss a huge opportunity.
Yeah, he really did.
Tony Campolo and him could have oppressed it. And, you know, Tony, he would have come out with all his religious talk about what it means to be a real Christian. You know, I tell you, they missed it. They had a golden opportunity.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway. Hey, I've got this song. I don't know if I played this once before, but it's Michael W. Smith's son-in-law.
Before we close on that, let's get an update on Sound of Freedom. It's really going.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Oh, I saw it. I went this week. My wife and I went, and it's good. I was impressed. The thing that impressed me, Jim Caviezel, of course, the guy's always just incredible actor.
Master actor, isn't he?
But these kids, there's a little boy in this.
Yeah. Can we get my sister? Oh, melt your heart.
The little boy is just amazing. And then his sister too, you know, and just these kids in general. They've got all these, I don't know where they find these kids, but it's a true story. Of course, there's always a little bit of
Hollywoodizing.
What do they call it? License, theatrical license, a dramatic license, whatever. But anyway, to me, the real story almost is the making of the film that Disney originally got it. They bought it 5 years ago, maybe a little more than 5 years ago. And then what happened, they just sat on it. And then finally, the producer got it away from Disney. It took them that long to get it away from them. And Angel Studios, who did The Chosen, they're the ones who bought the rights. And now Angel has released it, and it's doing well. It's probably up around $60-70 million now. I'm sure it'll break 100. It'll be the largest Christian. It's not really a Christian movie, but Christian themed film. Which brings me something else. I don't know what it is or who's behind this, but Angel Studios, who did The Chosen, for some reason, there's this, it's like the Republican Party. These Christians are continually out there attacking Angel Studios because Tim Ballard, now this is what's funny, okay? Tim Ballard is...
He's the producer, right?
No, he was the actual FBI agent.
Oh, okay. He's the character in the story.
Right.
Yeah.
He was the guy. It was a true story. And he's the one that quit. He gave up his job.
Yeah.
With the, I don't know if it was FBI or, no, I think he was INS, Immigration Nationals.
Okay.
I think he was with INS. He gave up his job to start doing this, helping with this stealing of children, basically.
Yeah.
What they call it, trafficking.
Yep.
And anyway, well, everybody's pumping the movie. It's spreading like wildfire. All of a sudden, someone discovers Tim Ballard's a Mormon.
Oh, God.
So you can't say, are
What do you know?
kidding me? So he's a Mormon, so I'm not going to support this movie to stop child trafficking because he's a Mormon?
Yeah.
And Mormons are behind it? Are you kidding me? What in the world is wrong with you?
That's devilish. That attitude is, listen,
It's crazy.
Yeah, when I was running Santorum's Oklahoma campaign, he was up against Mitt Romney, a Mormon. And I had people come in our office. You've been in the office we had open on 71st Street. And they start in, we got to stop Romney. That Mormon cult is, and I just, wait a minute. I'd walk him out the door. And I said, listen, Rick Santorum has some very devout Mormons supporting him over Mitt Romney. You start trashing their faith, and I said, you're going to create a problem for me I don't need.
Yeah.
Now, you can keep your views, but as far as the discussion in this office is not going to happen. Those are my terms.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, all these people don't want to see or don't want you to see Sound of Freedom because the guy who saved all these children and has devoted his life to stopping child trafficking is a Mormon.
Right.
I don't care. I don't care if he's honestly. I don't care if he's a Satan worshiper.
Right.
If he's saving children and not offering them to Satan.
Right.
If he's saving the children to save the children. That's his personal life is something else. He's saving children, and anybody saving children. That's the story. That's what we're talking about here.
Right.
Jim Caviezel is a devout Christian. He's a Catholic. Oh, are you going to be upset because he's
a papist?
He's a yeah. We don't know what everybody else in there is. You better watch out. There may be some Jews in the acting.
There's not a perfect person in the whole production team.
Moira Savino plays his wife. I don't know what Moira. She may be Jewish. I have no idea. But
Eddie, Catholics aren't perfect. Mormons aren't perfect. I do know the Mormons have done more to champion family values as a cultural issue.
It goes back to, and what started all this, The Chosen. Okay, Chosen just became so popular.
Yeah.
Well, we can't have that.
Yeah.
So what happens, they started this with Angel Studios because the Mormons invested in it.
Yeah.
And then they started using, in Salt Lake City, the Mormons apparently have a studio for inside shots. So all of a sudden the rumor goes, Mormons are involved.
Yeah.
I said, well, my question is anything in the movie that you saw, was there anything inaccurate?
Yeah.
Was there any Mormon doctrine that you saw in any of the episodes of The Chosen? No.
Exactly.
Well, then, where's your beef?
Exactly.
Where's your beef? And here's the other one. Have you seen Ben-Hur? Have you seen King of Kings? Have you seen the 10 Commandments? Because you better not open your mouth if you liked any of those movies because those were done by Jews. Those
on
were done,
Hollywood studio sets.
Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer were Jewish people. They were Jew to the max.
Yeah.
And yet they did Christian movies and made millions. In fact, they built their studios on Ben-Hur and the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Because they were such big blockbuster movies.
Right.
The King of Kings.
Right. And those are the same people that, had, Bing Cosby is devout Catholic, and he worked for Jews. And he made the Catholic, and the Christian faith look good. The Jews were doing it. Eddie, you were a record label producer. You some of your artists had to go find a studio and rent it wherever. You don't ask, well, who else has used this studio?
Yeah, the Christians didn't have any money.
I mean, this Pentecostal
for studio, they didn't own studio.
This Pentecostal Bible camp that my kids went to, when we were done using it, our denomination, by the middle of July, we rented it out to a Jewish youth group. Jews were using a Christian Bible camp. How terrible is that? And we were taking their money. How terrible were we? Just leave it alone.
You know what? I almost forgot to ask. Is Vivek Ramaswamy with that Swami at the end? Does that mean he's a Hindu?
I don't know.
Is he a Swami?
I don't know.
I mean, come on. And I get in. I see these things on Facebook, and I just shake my head. I'm thinking, what? We've got such big issues to be dealing with in the world, and they're sitting there worried, or like, you've seen all of the things, or like YouTube. I can't tell you the countless YouTube videos attacking, what's his name, Joel Osteen, and Bethel Church, and Elevation Church. It's all these big popular, churches that particularly, and the guys down in Australia, all the worship churches. Hillsong. Yeah. Okay, granted, Hillsong had issues with their pastors, okay. I haven't seen any issues yet with Elevation, the church there in North Carolina, or Bethel. I know people whose kids work at Bethel, and as far as I know, Elevation is right on. And so, and there, I haven't found anything wrong with the worship. I can tell you some of the other people that you want to elevate as great worship people that I know issues, and some too.
Oh God!
That people that you think these are just wonderful people, but it just drives me nuts.
Eddie,
that's what drives us nuts, because we know some of the stories about the people
even
that
King David, the great guy who's supposed to be man after God's will, I wouldn't trust him around my wife because he had another man killed while he's having an affair with his wife. Okay, so there's nobody perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, by the way, you still haven't gotten to the biggest scandal about Sound of Freedom. Do you know that if you buy a ticket, you're supporting QAnon? Oh, Rolling Stones made that their big narrative.
That's the other thing that bugs me. That we're so worried about. We don't even have time to worry about the secular attacks on Sound of Freedom.
Yeah,
that it's within the body itself. The Christians attacking it. We don't even. It's like they're taking a circular firing squad, basically. Right. They're getting shot in the back. They can't even face, Rolling Stone. And what was the other one? There was another one that started it all. Vanity Fair. Yeah. One of those secular periodicals that started attacking.
But they're all from the same group think, you know?
but then now all of a sudden they're getting shot from behind, you know.
But their big goal was, if we could, in the first week, if we could get 2 million viewers, and they got 5.3 million in the first week.
Yeah, they pulled in $40 million. $40 million.
Yeah.
They beat out Indiana Jones in that.
Yes.
Weekend. Yeah, which was a shock,
I know, because that's Disney, the great legacy.
Disney sold the movie, and then they came back,
they
came back and beat them, But I did see Indiana Jones. We had to, for nostalgia's sake. On that same weekend, so not enough people.
It's too hot outside. You got to sit in a theater.
Yeah. Anyway, but if my Bluetooth works this weekend, I've got everything shut on. This is a song I want to finish with.
I just don't know if it's paired.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think we paired it last time. We're going to find out if it's paired. But anyway, this is Leland, as Michael W. Smith's son-in-law. But it's called You're Not Done. And it's what we were saying earlier, that it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And whatever you're going through, don't worry, you're not done. God God will get you through it, and you'll make it. So I pray that it functions, and we don't have a problem we had a few weeks ago, and we will get. So let's
Great
see.
show this week, Eddie.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yep.
Nope. Dave will add it.
So to pair it, you have to hold that down and make sure it pairs with your phone. We'll be starting. Yeah, just to recap while Eddie's getting that paired. So we talked about Tucker with his interviews in Iowa, the presidential up and down, that Vivek has right now got a bullet. He's at double digits and within striking range of taking over for Ron DeSantis. Trump still has a strong lead. Our criminal justice system is crazy, and the military-industrial complex is pushing Ukraine, and I think that's the way you do your litmus test of whether or not your candidate is on the right side or not. And we finish off with the Elian Gonzalez update. Here we go. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dave.
Yep.
I know you're tired. I know you're weak. And all of that fighting's got you down on your knees. You're desperate for change. Desperate to know there's a light still alive. Child, lift up your eyes, for your help draws nigh. Child, lift up your eyes. It'll be alright. Every tear you've cried, let the sunlight dry. Every tear you've cried, it'll be alright. If you still have breath in your lungs, if you still have breath in your lungs, you're not done. I'll be your strength, and I'll be your song. I'll be the solid rock you can stand on. With you always, you're never alone, 'cause I'm right by your side. Child, lift up your eyes, for your help draws nigh. Child, lift up your eyes. It'll be alright. Every tear you've cried, let the sunlight shine. Every tear you've cried, it'll be alright. If you still have breath in your lungs, if you still have breath in your lungs, you're not done. No, you're not finished. Hey, if you still have breath in your lungs, you think it's over. Hey, if you still have breath in your lungs, God is just getting started. Yes, He is. Hey, if you still have breath in your lungs, what the enemy meant for evil, God is turning around for His glory and your good. Shall lift up your eyes, for your help draws nigh. Shall lift up your eyes. Oh, it'll be alright. Every everything that I know says I gotta go